I'm happy to be here and to present today. I think we had a very interesting day yesterday with interesting presentation, but I would say every single presentation was about men football. So it was not about the fans or the attendance, but the clubs we saw or you described were all football clubs, men football. But we also have women's football, and we think this is very, very interesting. My co-author, Sophie, she's not here, unfortunately, but it's very interesting because we do not know much about women's football or the fans of women's football. And I would say 10, 20 years ago, it was not so interesting, but in the last years, so especially in Germany, which is where I put the focus on, but also in Europe as well, we found a growing popularity in the last years, especially since the European Championships 2022 in England. And so we have a lack of empirical research on attendance structures, key drivers of stadium attendance in German women's football or in women's sports in general, I would say. So we see some difference between major events like the World Cup, so it's gaining more attraction or attention, but there's still less stadium demand in the regular season in the women's football. And you are all experts here, men's football. So I'm a sports economist, so not I have maybe a little bit different perspective. And we have a lot of studies in men's football, but we cannot simply transfer that to women's football because we have some different circumstances, maybe media coverage, financial resources, attendance, etc. So it was work together with the German Football Association. Together means cooperation, and the cooperation was that we got support while we are doing these survey attendance. I will show you in a minute. And the DFB, German Football Association, did a plan some years ago, and they have the aim to develop the attendance figures in the following years, and that in the last years. So I wrote my PhD about women's football in 2018, and we saw attendance figures around or less than 1,000 people in average at each game. And now in the last years, we saw a rising number, and you can see that the plans are going up or that the growth continues. So the purpose and objective of this study, but I will show you only just some key results, and I think we can discuss about that later on. So to analyze the fan and attendance structure in women's football, to improve the stadium experience, and in a longer term that the attendance develop and the figure attendance developed, and to strengthen maybe fan loyalty. So coming to my research question, how can spectator structure in the women's football Bundesliga, actual Google Pixel Bundesliga, can be described based on the motives, attitudes, and social demographic characteristics. So just give you a very short overview. Like I said, you are all experts here. So in this field, we have find a lot with the perspective of men's football, but the lack of quantitative surveys. The survey is not as big as I think Felix showed yesterday with more than 20,000, but you will see in a minute. We are happy with our data set. What we did, so we visit every match of the women's football of the Bundesliga, of the first division, one time in the season, the last season. So at that time there were 12 teams within the league, and our survey team, students, myself as well, we collected, or we asked the attendants to participate survey via QR code. And the good thing in women's football is that we saw the attendance figures. These are not too much, and very often they have only 2 entrances. So it was a good choice to ask more or less every person to participate within the survey. Of course, not everyone did. Yeah, we see the figures, but there was, I would say, not a big bias in choosing the people who joined the matches. So it was a multi-purpose online survey, so 31 questions, a lot. So I will show you some small results, but interesting, or what you keep in mind, that we often use the 5-point Likert scale, so with a 5 of the highest agreement. So if we see the numbers, you can have an idea of the figures. And like I said, the data set was about around more than 3,000. So we, like I said, we ask people in every stadium, and yeah, like you see, the survey or the response rate was from nearly a third, for example, in Bremen, very good, but we see, for example, the last game, Freiburg, around 5%, but around, I would say, between 10 and 20% of the people which were in the stadium at that game. So yeah, I think this is quite satisfied. In our survey, we ask questions about the interest, fandom, the ticketing, match attendance, and information communication structure. So, like I said, very big survey. So I will show you a lot of figures now, or numbers, but just show you the most important things. At the top, you see our dependent variables. I will use in the following slides, the last slide. So we did a regression analysis, and therefore we used the dependent variable of the interest. So the question was, are you interested in women's football, 1 to 5? And another dependent variable, how often do you visit a game in this season? This season and last season. So, but that, just keep that in mind. For the other socio-demographic, I'll show you some slides. Yeah, we asked about questions to the fan base, the ticket purchase, where do you buy the ticket, when did you buy the ticket, so who's your match companion, are you going alone, and all that. So many questions. How did you travel to the stadium? What was the distance? One-way distance. So what about some questions to the interest? So is it the first time you're in the stadium? Are you generally interested in men's football? And the other question, are you interested in women's football? Are you playing football by yourself? Do you have a favorite club in men's football or in women's football? So how often are you going to the stadium? I will show you the next slide. So what is your favorite match day? I will show you as well. But very important, like when we ask for the motives, so what is the reason for you going visiting football matches in women's football? And we see the most important thing is so support women's football. So here we can see with nearly 4.5. So this was the most important reason. As well important is, for example, experience. So the stadium experience, so to make a stadium experience, for example, on the quality of the match is important. We ask, okay, maybe boycotting men's football, is that a reason? And we see, okay, that is not a reason. So later on in the regression analysis, we see that this has an influence, but in the comparison with the other motives, it's not any factor, not an impact. As well, we ask for some questions about the facility and infrastructure and what is important, for example, and we just see the safety is the most important thing. So, and this is often, I think, yeah, it's one of the main images women's football have, especially in Germany. So it's so safe and the friendly atmosphere, and there are no ultras. I say, okay, unfortunately, there are until now no ultras, but these are some reasons. And we see here that safety is very important for the attendance, and all the other reasons are, yeah, so not too important. The overall atmosphere is very important, 4.4, and yeah, like choreos, cheering, fan cheer, etc. is, yeah, I would say media important. Okay, this is some sources of information via club website, Facebook, Instagram, etc. I just can sum up that Instagram is the most important information source. We asked, how did you inform about that match, or how do you inform in general about women's football? But yeah, I will skip that. Okay, show you some socio-demographic characteristics, and interesting, I would say that the gender is nearly, I would say, nearly equal. So often people say, okay, in the stadium there are all young girls, yeah, women or young girls with a younger age, and we can found that we have a slight majority of women with 55%, but it's not, yeah, it's very equal, I would say. And especially if we have a look on the average age and the age structure, we can see that it's not only the young girls of 15, 18, 20, whatever. So it's around, yeah, we have an average age of nearly 38 years. And we can see that nearly in every decade, we have around minimum of 10%. So that's a wide range of stadium attendance. We have found a high level of education, 6 and 7 is both university degrees. So with nearly half of the people, so 45% have a university degree. So well-educated structure. We asked some questions about the match attendance. Are you interested in women's football? And there was an average. I mean, this is maybe obvious if you ask at women's football matches and you ask people, are you interested in women's football? But there's, I would say, only an interest of 4.2. So we saw differences in people who were very, very interested, but we had around 20% which said, I'm not interested or not at all. And I would say this is an interesting figure, that 20% more or less are at the match of women's football and they are not really interested. Maybe they are the partner of someone or whatever, but yeah, we can sort it. I will skip that because we see it on the next graph. And what was very interesting, this question, because in women's football in Germany, we have highlight games for 2 years. That means that in more or less every club, one time in the season, they moved to the big stadium, for example, of Cologne, of Munich, or whatever, and then they played. They had an attendance of 30,000, 40,000, but it's always one time in a season. And we ask, because this is, of course, from the German Football Association as well, from the clubs, it's, of course, a marketing idea as well, to attract many people. And after the next, when the next game, home match is again in the small stadium, we have again 1,000 people and not 30,000. And so we asked, did you attend the last highlight match, and was the highlight game crucial for the match? And I would say it's very interesting that 15%, I would say this is maybe a 6 or a 7, say, okay, the highlight game was crucial for me to visiting this following match. So I think, so you can rise the stadium attendance through highlight matches. The favorite kickoff time was Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Monday matches, like in men's football, are not very likely. So, sorry, some German words, but we see that we ask how many matches did you visit last season, and will you visit this season? And we have a smooth rise of the average attendance matches, but it's both around between 5 and 6 matches, and but at the end, so in this season, nearly 80% says okay, they want to visit every game. So the maybe the core fans, we can say. For away matches, we see away matches are not really common in women's football as well. So most of the fans did not or will not visit any away game. So this is an average, but around 1. Here again, some German words, but the main most of the people arrived by car, and the distance, how far they traveled, was nearly the half of the people had a distance of less than 20 kilometers. But we see the other half with 20 to 50, or some people run more than 100 kilometers. Okay, so these are the results of the regression analysis. And looking at the time, I will sum up the results in the next slides. But we can see that some factors have an influence of the interest in women's football. So this is took 4 models. I will not explain maybe in a coffee break, but we asked for the interest, and as well on the stadium attendance. So what factors influence the number of stadium attendances? And I will show you in the next slides the results. So to what we found out in general. And we can say that the interest in women's football is most influential predictor of match attendance. So, and primarily driven by the perceived attraction. For example, motivation to support women's football, experience in high quality matches, and these are the key determinants of the perceived attraction. Second, families and social groups serve as important reference persons, but in the statistics we see that this is not the main factor to participate at women's football matches. So it's, I think, an interesting case. Instead, team identification is a key factor for attending matches. Families are unloyal attendees. So, I mean, as a father by myself, I would say going with the kids to the stadium is more like, okay, what can we do today? It's good weather, yeah. Are we going to the cinema, or maybe let's go to the football match? So this is a good alternative, but it's not the factor for a stable fan base or loyal fan base. I think for the discussion, very interesting, and I think from my perspective, the most important thing in the future is that women's football should keep its own identity, so as it attracts fans to avoid men's football. And people like the authentic character of women's football, but what happens if the professionalization rises in the next year? So then they play match by match with 20, 30,000 people, and I think then the identity could change. Fourth, organizational factors such as match day scheduling, short travel distance, and early ticket purchase are key determinants of stadium attendance. We found that. And finally, club attachment is higher among older fans, and that was an interesting result. So reasons are maybe they are settled community, so there's no unequal financial resources, and maybe younger generations are more likely to relocate. So during entering university or leaving university and all that. So the traditional target audience consists of young girls accompanied by the father could not be validated. So this is what often is said, that there are young girls going with their father, and or young groups of girls, maybe the football teams and all that, and we could not show that. So some limitations, but you didn't show me, I think, the minutes, right? But, 1 minute? Okay. Perfect. So finally, of course, there are a lot of or some limitations. So at one match in Essen, we had a big problem with the QR code. So we received just 15 feedback. So we had to quit that. Only 2 surveys took place after a highlight match. So we keep that in mind, that maybe the results are different. Maybe there are some possible bias in the single survey, because some surveys were held at matches against Bayern Munich or Wolfsburg, one of the most important teams, and there were some other matches with 2 teams from the bottom. And so we are happy with our questionnaire, because we repeat that study this season again, and now we have already done 10 surveys. So 4 are missing, because now there are playing 14 teams in the Women's Bundesliga, and so we had to figure out if the questionnaire was well constructed. We changed some minor things, but in general, we keep that. Okay, so I'm happy to
thank you very much.
Any questions?